vanishes on Election Day. We've all seen that. And so the Democrats were clinging to this, that you would have a black mirage, that the blacks would just vanish on Election Day for Trump. And that doesn't seem to be the case. The black turnout is down, but it appears also that black turnout for Trump is up. And we'll certainly know more about that as some of these other numbers roll in.
So we have to continue to watch. We're waiting on Election Day drops in Indiana. See, here's an example why you can't read too far into the early vote. Right now, Harris is up in Ohio by 29,000 votes. Why? It's because they're pushing in the ballots from Cuyahoga County, which is Cleveland. They're 34% in.
Yep.
So remember, everything is in the details. You need to watch down in the details.
Traditionally, we used to say when I was living in Ohio that you had Cleveland, which was Democrat, you had Cincinnati, which was Republican, then you had the middle of the state, which for the most part was flippable. One side or the other. Obama won many of these places like Dayton, for example, and Columbus. And Ohio has become much more red, particularly in the entire eastern cusp of Ohio, where you have all of the energy and oil companies, and of course all around Cuyahoga, which is where you have all the small businesses that feed the automakers and all the industrial areas there, and those are heavily Republican, Lake County and some of these others up there. So the old metric of measuring Ohio of these three separate areas really kind of no longer holds water. Here's some numbers on Hillsborough, Florida. And again, Florida's coming in with its data very quickly. Florida has managed to count votes fairly quickly. Gee, isn't that amazing? How do they do that? Anyway, Hillsborough, which used to be a flip county, a Democrat county that you really had to work to take, is now Republican +2. Miami-Dade, as we said earlier, is now Republican +2.9. Some of these numbers a little earlier. Duval at this time was 3.1. I think it's dropped a tad. So wherever you look, you're starting to see this red push in all of these states, and it seems to be favoring President Trump. None of the results we're reporting to you, except for that one in Cuyahoga County, are off the margin for Harris, right?
Harris's margin in Ohio right now is built by Cuyahoga County, Cleveland, and they're starting to dribble in votes in Hamilton County, which is in
Hamilton's
Cincinnati.
very red.
So remember, early votes, it depends on where they come from. So Ohio right now is showing you a blue mirage. Georgia right now is showing you a red mirage with a 25-point Trump lead, which will dwindle as the vote from Atlanta comes in. Right now, the best indicator of a broad national trend is found in Florida. Now, do I think that Florida is a national bellwether still? I'm not sure about that, because I don't see any Democrat winning Florida in any time soon based on the trend. But I do think that it's probably predictive of trends nationally this year.
Well, since we're talking about that, why don't we look at some of these Senate races? And again, this notion that Florida was going to be close. This seems to suggest that Rick Scott doesn't have any issue at all in Florida, that he ought to come across pretty well.
No, Scott will probably, I would be surprised if he varies from Trump's margin much at all. Remember, Ron DeSantis won the state by 19. Marco Rubio is only 3 points behind him. So I'm not sure. Maybe Scott will run ahead of Trump, maybe not. But I think that they're both going to win by a very wide margin.
Since we're talking the Senate, let's go ahead and look at a couple of these other races here for the Senate.
Before you jump into that.
Sure.
This is why you always say, I don't do polls.
Exactly. I mean, Rick Scott, he's only 2 points ahead of the Democrat, and like we say, he'll probably end up winning at least by 7 or 8. Anyway, we have some other Senate races that we're going to keep an eye on. I think everybody expects that West Virginia is going to go to Jim Justice there, and that will be a Republican flip. That has not been in doubt most of the year. The other two Republican flips that seem pretty solid are Tim Sheehy up in Montana. And this is a strange race because I got to be honest, we've thought for years, several cycles, that John Tester could be gotten, that he could be had, that he was weak enough, and it's a very red state, Montana, and there's no reason this guy should be a senator in Montana, but he holds on. But now she's been running ahead in polls. You know what I think about polls, but he's been running way ahead of Tester, and so it looks like that's going to be a flip. And then the last one, which is why we're watching Ohio, is not so much for President Trump, but for Bernie Moreno in Ohio, where the last few polls have had him up, and those would give the Republicans 3 flips, which would give them a Senate majority of 53-47. Now, there's some other races we're going to be watching, including the Senate race in Pennsylvania with McCormick, and the Wisconsin race with Hovad, and the Michigan race with Rogers, and, of course, Arizona's Kari Lake. I think most people believe Sam Brown in Nevada is a little outside the margin in which he's able to win, but if Trump posts big numbers in Nevada, he might bring Brown on.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing for people to look at these Senate races. Like John Tester in Montana, he's definitely past his life expectancy, peacefully stated, in a state that is red. And Montana is trending in a way that even the press writes articles about how red it's becoming. It's sort of becoming like a Western Florida, where all these conservatives from California and Oregon and Washington are moving to Montana.
Yellowstone, right?
Right, and that's another thing, and the locals hate it too. But in Montana, you've got the issue with Missoula, which is a college county, got a big liberal base there. But the old Democrat base in Montana was in mining and in the railroads, and of course the native population and the reservations. So once they've lost the working class, you don't have enough environmental liberals in Montana to keep a Democrat coalition alive. So Tester has had to pose as a moderate for all these years, and he got past Rosendale in the 2018 midterms, and that was not without debacle in its own. They have mastered the art of amplifying their ballot count everywhere possible.
Right.
And I've heard some stories from Montana.
And so we do have a Senate race in New Mexico. New Mexico is an interesting state, kind of an odd state electorally, because you say, well, Trump is doing so much better with Hispanics. New Mexico is a U-shaped electorate. That is to say, it's got a lot of high-end, fairly well-to-do professionals up in Los Alamos, in Alamogordo, Sandia, all those kinds of things. It's got a lot of liberal artist types up in Santa Fe. And then it's got a lot of fairly poor population, a lot of people who are on government assistance and so on and so forth. And what's missing in New Mexico is a middle class. Really, the middle class there would be mostly built around energy, but the most recent governors there have been anti-energy and have done what they can to tamp down that industry in the name of environmentalism. And so New Mexico finds itself, it's a hard nut to crack. Can Trump get it? The latest poll showed him within 3 points, 4 points, maybe even closer, maybe within 2 points. But New Mexico is one of those where he's going to need a national surge, almost a landslide. And you know what I think about landslides if you followed my writing. They're very, very difficult to get in today's modern political system. So, speaking of our modern political system, I think we have another video coming up, this one by Seth, on fake electors. Wait, where am I? We have that? I'm sorry. We have a replay of a short video. What video am I doing, guys? I don't know what I'm doing here tonight. We don't know what I'm doing? Yes. And we'll be back